Hello and thank you for tuning in to another very special episode of Peace, Love, and Guns. My name is Will, and this is the Ghostbusters Haslab 2-in-a-Box Crossing Over Cable, or so I've named it. This is enabling the Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2 Bargraph LED animations for the front Bargraph LED on the Haslab 2-in-a-Box. It is a partial crossover cable, just the wires that matter, and it's a plug-and-play solution. Many of you asked for it, and I am proud to be able to be the first person to offer it. In order to install it, it's a simple matter of unscrewing the screws on your trap cartridge, taking your batteries out, and going through the process. So, watching me turn a screwdriver is bad TV, so I've sped the process up slightly. Once we get all the screws out, you can then get the front Allen keys screws out of the front plate, as well as the 4 screws underneath the bar graph. That will enable you to pull off the base plate and pull out the main board. You want to be ginger careful with this so you don't break any connections. There I am removing the front Allen screws from the front plate. That slides up afterwards and releases some tension on the cables. You can set that front plate off to the side and take a look at what you're working with here. You're just going to need to disconnect this front ribbon cable. You want to be a little careful with it, as it is not going to be as flexible as mine is here. I went ahead and pulled the individual strands apart, which gives you a little bit more flexibility. And I'm just displaying the normal bar graph light sequence. As you can see, the capture sequence goes from right to left as stock, and that is not the capture sequence that is in the Ghostbusters 1 and 2 movies that we all know and love. So of course we want to change that. Now, you don't have to buy the crossing over cable. You can do this all by yourself. If I can do it, you can do it, as I always say. And if you don't want to do it we'll call it the hard way. It's not particularly difficult, but if you don't want the plug-and-play solution, you can do this by removing the individual conductors from the connector and rearranging them as shown in my previous video. But if you are someone that wants the absolute easiest way of going about this and you're afraid to perhaps break some of the wires or the connections, you can purchase the crossing over cable and install it as such. I do so using some tweezers just to make sure all of the ends and the centers are connected. This is a 2-inch long adapter cable, and that gives you the flexibility of having the length of the cable, but the shortness of the cable to allow you to get it physically within the confines of the space. Plugging in the cable is of course going to give you the correct sequence as shown here from left to right during the capture sequence, which is what we all want to see on our Haslab 2-in-a-Box Ghost Trap. Now, if you're anything like me, you'll say, I don't want to pay for a drop-in cable. I want to do it myself. Well, to you I say, absolutely. Take a walk on the wild side with me, and let me show you how to do that. Again, I did show this in my last video, but I figure I can show it a little bit more cleanly here, and a little bit more close up, and in the exact order of how to do it. The first 4 strands from left to right, starting with the red one, those you're going to leave alone, and the very last 15th strand you're going to leave alone. These remaining conductors, you're going to simply reverse the order. This one will be in that place, this one will be in that place, this one will be in the third place from the right, and vice versa. So we're simply going to detach these from the connector. You do have to be ginger careful. I use a pair of tweezers and a razor knife to lift up on that locking tab, and I'm doing this in near real time in the recording with just a little bit of editing here and there where maybe I had to reposition my hand. Pulling those conductors out, being ginger careful not to bend too far on that tab. Now this white connector is made of nylon and it is fairly robust, and if you do bend one slightly too far, you can put pressure on it to bend it back down into place. However, you want to minimize the amount of strain you put on the wires and minimize the amount of strain you put on those plastic tabs. They lock over the silver metal end terminals of the wires when you push them back in the correct order. And this 14th pin is going to be the last one that we remove. We leave the 15th. Now, again, in near real time, here we have 4 from left to right, and then the 15th is left alone as well. Looking at the other end, we are going to look at the 4 wires and the one at the end. We're going to take the 14th conductor, the 14th wire, which would normally go in this position, in the 14th spot here, and we're going to move it over to the 5th spot. It's going to be exactly opposite. There's a little tab that sticks up that locks this into the white nylon connector, and I use a pair of tweezers to finish pushing it all the way, and then give it a little tug just to make sure that it's fully seated. If you bent your connector a little bit too much, you may need to put some pressure on it just to make sure that it fully locks in when you push the terminal into the connector. Now we grab the 13th conductor and we put it into the 6th slot. We grab the 12th conductor. Orient it correctly. And it goes in the 7th slot. Double check your work, make sure that your terminals are fully seated in there, and give them a little tug. And now we grab the 11th wire and plug that into the 8th slot in the connector. And so on and so forth. This is fairly easy to do if you've got past the first part where you've already went and pried up the connectors. Now you probably understand what's going on here. We're simply reversing the 14th through the 5th pin. Instead of having 5 go to 5 and 6 go to 6, we're having 5 go to 14 and 6 go to 13 and 7 go to 12, 8 go to 11, 9 go to 10, 10 go to 9, and so on and so forth, until we have a fully partially crossed over set of original cables. It's not terribly difficult. It requires a little bit of a gingered touch, but if I can do it, you can do it. And if you don't want to do it, I'll gladly take your money and send you one of my crossing over cables. I have a whole stack of pink bubble wrapped bubble mailers, as well as a stack of Ghostbusters stickers and a baggie of cables that I'm ready, willing, and happy to ship out for anybody that doesn't want to do this sort of messy but not terribly difficult mod, so that you can get the correct screen accurate lighting on your 2-in-a-box Haslab Ghost Trap. And here we are on our last 2 conductors. And once this is over, if you stayed with me watching this whole process, you will have seen it done in very near real time, that is. Now, if you choose not to purchase a crossing over adapter cable for your Haslab 2-in-a-box, I will gladly accept your thanks and praise, but it really goes a lot if you could hit like, perhaps subscribe to the channel, or even donate on Patreon or on my Ko-Fi link. Anything that can help the community, save you guys a little bit of money, inspire you to do more mods, and keep the ingenuity going forward. That's worthwhile to me. Or just leave a comment and say, hey, thanks buddy. You got it, buddy. I'm here for you. We give our wires a little tug just to make sure that our connectors are all solid. We do this through pins 1 through 15, all of them, just to make sure that they are secure before we go back to bench testing. Now, it's worth noting that if you do choose to purchase my crossing over Haslab 2-in-a-box Ghost Trap adapter cable to get screen accurate lighting, it's my promise to you that I will be 100% fully bench testing every cable that I ship out and verifying that my overseas manufacturer has manufactured the cables to spec, that they fit in an actual Haslab Ghost Trap, and that it'll work with no problem when it gets to you. And I recommend you do a bench test yourself, because you may forget to plug something in. If you do choose to do a bench test in this method like I'm doing, I have disconnected the set of thick wires with a black connector on them. That is the power for the door motors. That way I can have the trap cartridge sit face down on the table and not strain the wires, not break anything off, and I can test to make sure that I have the accurate, screen accurate lighting without having the doors try and open and pop the gear, and then necessitate having to look at my other video that I did. Check that out, where I show you how to open the gearbox up and make sure that your gears are and the doors are installed properly so that they are timed in case your gears pop and skip on you. Our test is complete, and we have a functional screen accurate display on our Ghostbusters Haslab 2-in-a-box Ghost Trap. Now I make sure to plug in my door motors. Just double check your other connections there, make sure you didn't strain anything. This front plate is oriented with that angled section down. We're gonna push all of our wires in and make room. It looks sort of like I've got a wire in the way there, but just make sure that you don't have anything trapped. And your holes will line up in the front when you've got that positioned correctly. You can kind of set the base plate off to the side there. It'll kind of rest on the edge. The red wire orients in the same direction that the red wire orients on the other ribbon cable. And it makes sense to push the ribbon cable kind of down and under the cluster of wires there. It gives you the most space. I set it off to the side for a sec, grab my handy dandy tweezers, and I use this to push the connector in and make sure there's a good solid connection so this doesn't come apart when I'm cosplaying and running around all day. You wouldn't want your lights to stop working now, would ya? Use your tweezers there to make sure that the connector is fully seated. And now we have to align the various screw holes with the screw pegs. You want to start feeling out where the wires are going to go, kind of trace your paths, plan it out before you start smushing the thing down. The kind of motherboard, main board, goes off to the front. It goes a little further forward than you may initially think, and you want to make sure that those wires are not on the wall side of the trap. Kind of make sure everything is clear of each one of these screw pegs. And on this side, make sure that the wires here, this is the most pain in the butt kind of side here. That wire likes to hang out right on top of that peg, so you want to get it pushed good and down right in there. And start kind of test fitting and iteratively get stuff moved in place. Don't be too rough. You can kind of coil the original Bargraph wire slightly, and you can see that I've got just the tip sticking out there. Use your finger to kind of push that in, and you can feel where the screw holes and the screw pegs, if there is anything binding, don't force it. You need to kind of wiggle it a little bit, crack it back open. You can use your tweezers to pull it out slightly. Take a look, do a little peekaboo, and push the wires down with your tweezers if anything is binding. You do not want to cut your wires by screwing a screw in over them or pinching it between various plates and sandwiching them. That would be bad.
Why? It would be bad.
I'm fuzzy on the whole good-bad thing. What do you mean bad?
Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal. All right, that's bad. Okay. All right, important safety tip. Thanks, Egon.
Because then you're gonna have a little soldering job on your hand. Watching me turn a screwdriver is bad TV, so I speed that up. And what do we have here but a fully installed Haslab 2-in-a-box Ghost Trap crossing over cable. And what do you know? It's got the correct capture animation now. For the low price of $30.
I had no idea it'd be so much I won't pay it.
Plus shipping. I may lower that in the future, but I do need a few brave volunteers to go ahead and help me get my return on investment, because paying overseas manufacturers is kind of costly to do this in small numbers. Thank you for watching.